So, of course, there's going to be a militia band. They're going to tell us that we can't get together and form our own little military squadrons, teams, whatever you want to call them, right at the same time that they're trying to open up the border and tell us that we can't guard our border in our own towns. So it just makes sense. I don't, this is just another part that makes me think that we're going to civil war. I don't even think it. I pretty much know it at this point. Everything's playing out exactly like the original Civil War. And now even California is talking about seceding. Like, look at this. California secession movement wants national divorce to avoid civil war. I don't think that's going to avoid civil war. I think that's exactly what civil war wants and needs to happen, because that's what happened in the original Civil War. States started to secede, and then they started fighting because they're going to fight over resources, because certain states have certain resources that other states use. Like, you think about California and Colorado. I don't know if Colorado is going to join California. I don't know if they're going to join Texas. They might be their own faction. And that's going to be a thing. There's going to be like 5, 7, 12, 30 different factions all fighting over resources and saying each other's lying.
They're just idiots, and we allow idiots to gather, and we allow idiots to be idiots in this country. That's what America's all about. That's what we stand for.
True. True.
We are the Armed Attorneys. We have a weird one today. This is not kind of our normal video, but I think it's important to kind of take the temperature of the country, take a deep breath, see where we're all at, and it looks like we're going to prevent private paramilitary activity.
Sure. Well, let's dive into this. Before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button.
And let's talk about this. So this is Representative Jamie Raskin, a Democrat out of Maryland, the 8th Congressional District, has just filed its H.R. 6981. If you want to check this out, the Preventing Private Paramilitary Act of 2024.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's an amendment that addresses this, number one.
I'll look that up. What was that called? Preventing Private Paramilitary Activity Act. Yeah, this is straight up on congress.gov. To amend Title 18 United States Code to prohibit unauthorized private paramilitary activity and for other purposes. So they're saying, and before we can defend ourselves against a tyrant government, we have to check with the tyrant government and tell them that we are doing it. And if they say no, we can't do it. It shall be unlawful to knowingly, in a circumstance described in subsection B, while acting as part of or on behalf of a private paramilitary organization and armed with a firearm, explosive or incendiary device, or other dangerous weapon, publicly patrol, drill, or engage in technique capable of causing bodily injury or death, interfere with, interrupt, or attempt to interfere with or interrupt government operations or a government proceeding. Yeah, isn't that the whole point of having a militia? Is to stop the government from doing things? Interfere with or intimidate another person in that person's exercise of any right under the Constitution of the United States. Assume the functions of a law enforcement officer, peace officer, or public official, whether or not acting under color of law, and thereby assert authority or purpose or purport to assert authority over another person without the consent of that person. Yeah, they're just trying to keep a monopoly on violence. They're losing their monopoly. They want to keep that. Trained to engage in any activity described in paragraphs 1 through 4. Circumstances. The circumstances described in the subsection are that the conduct described in subsection A involves travel across a state line or national border, or the use of channels, facilities, or instrumentalities of interstate or foreign commerce, involves a firearm, blah, 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 involves use of ammunition, blah, 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 obstructs, delays, or affects interstate. Like, how else are you going to do it? Yeah, this is straight up. I'm not reading all this. This is just straight up, like, they're telling you that you can't rise up against them. you can't revolt against, even when they're being tyrannical, which they are. This is straight up tyranny. This won't pass. I don't think it'll pass. I hope it doesn't.
2024.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's an amendment that addresses this, number one. Or number two, should I say.
Yeah.
Even though she's sick, she's still got it.
Yeah, this is, so we got a lot of things going on, a lot of moving pieces. We got an invasion at the border. The state of Texas has declared an invasion.
Mm-hmm.
We have, at this point, I think the number is 25 governors signing on to a letter. Many are already providing National Guard troops to help support Texas. That's actually a really, really interesting fight.
We'll talk about that Civil War later. Am I right?
Yeah, if you want us to cover that, there's a breakdown of Article 1. I think it's Section 10 about.
Yeah, this was from 6 days ago. There's been some crazy stuff at the border since then. Like we're on the verge of civil war.
States entering into agreements. This is some kind of really far out there stuff that I guess our founders envisioned, but I hadn't thought about in my lifetime.
Sure.
But here we are.
Here we are.
So we have this bill, and tell us, big picture, what are we talking about?
It is posed as though essentially we are preventing terrorist groups and terrorist
And also trying to be safe. That's what they're gonna say. That it's about safety.
activities. Don't get me wrong. I hate terrorists.
Controversial opinion.
Controversial opinion. I hate terrorists as much as any terrorist hater out there. However, this is not actually what this bill does. Because if you look, there are
It actually prevents you from fighting against terrorism. It's not to fight against terrorism. It is for prevention of fighting against terrorism.
5 very specific things that the bill on its face says it intends to criminalize. And those 5 things are already criminal activities. So that should be like spidey senses. Like, what does this bill actually do? And I have some ideas
It turns people that aren't criminals, that are actually trying to defend their homeland, into criminals, or paints them as criminals.
about that. But let's talk about the 5 things first. So it says essentially we've got these paramilitary groups. We're talking about Proud Boys. We're talking about Oath Keepers. These are terrorist groups. So says the bill. We know that because of January 6th activities. Terrorists, terrorists, terrorists. And so we have to have more laws that criminalize the things that are already criminalized here. So we've got
And when you start calling these group terrorists, then they'll start being terrorists.
number 1, publicly patrolling, drilling, or engaging in deadly paramilitary techniques. Well, deadly activities are already criminalized.
Yeah, so scratch that off.
Yep.
Publicly patrolling. Yeah, I mean, outside of the function of law enforcement, I mean, holding yourself out as law enforcement or as enforcing the law when not crime.
Yeah. But where do we draw the line between, like, let's say, I mean, I talked to somebody actually last week who's a counter protester against those pro Hamas protests.
Yep.
And he just walks up and down in front of those. At what point is that, if you have a group of you, is that patrolling?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's why this sort of stuff can get really dangerous.
Or you
really
got
fast.
all the mall security officers, they're observing. I mean, that's patrolling.
That is patrolling. Okay.
But all right, but the one here that's not, I would say that is unusual is drilling.
Drilling.
So that could be marching in formation. That could be, I mean, my Twitter timeline is blown up with guys going on backpacking trips and things like that.
Yeah.
So that could be a whole lot of things.
I'm not sure you get to criminalize drilling.
No, I don't think you can either. All right, number 2, interfering with or interrupting government proceedings. Already a crime.
Already a crime.
We can move on from that one.
Number 3, interfering with the exercise of someone else's constitutional rights.
Also crime.
Yeah, can't do that.
Yep.
Can't do that.
And then I felt the comment section go, isn't that what the government does every single day? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point of the bill. It's not saying like, oh, these things are illegal now. It's saying that we are saying you are doing these things and it's illegal.
If you thought that
well up in the earth,
yeah. Channeled you a little bit. Falsely assuming the functions of law enforcement and asserting the authority over others, also a crime.
Also a crime.
And then finally, training to engage in such behavior. That one probably is a little too broad.
Yeah, well, because if they're right, conspiracy to crime is a crime.
Yep.
However, and this is where we go, well, if all this stuff is generally criminalized, what is the point of the bill?
Right.
And this number 5, I think really hits to the heart of what they're trying to do, which is essentially they're trying to invade the First Amendment right of free association.
Yeah.
I mean, this is this is not a paramilitary anti-Second Amendment bill. This is an anti-First Amendment bill. This is I mean, do I love a lot of the groups out there on either side of the political equation? No.
Yeah, you have to be a part of their government approved, bureaucracy approved groups that they back, or you are a terrorist.
But
No,
the government doesn't get to tell us, like, these pro Hamas idiots who I would have to stop myself from breaking the law, probably to just run down the line and smack them all in the face. Can I tell them that they can't do what they're doing? No, the government can't tell them that.
Until they start actually committing crimes, like violent crimes that are going to affect people. If they're not doing that, that includes Antifa people. The moment they start breaking things and hurting people and setting things on fire, that's when you start arresting them.
They're
yeah.
just idiots. And we allow idiots to gather and we allow idiots to be idiots in this country. That's what America's all about. That's what we stand for.
But I think about the not idiots. Think about the summer of love. People line up outside their subdivisions, keeping people out. Think
Mm-hmm.
about people protecting
Ooh,
downtown
that's
business
right.
areas. I
Yes,
mean,
yes, yes.
I mean,
A,
this is saying,
yeah.
hey, you got to let the leftists burn the city to the ground, Bill.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, but I mean,
Actually, yeah, let them. Just let them get out of the cities. I'm sorry if it's still in the cities while they're burning down. It's kind of your fault. Like, get out of there. Let it burn.
the other part of this is basically there's a section of the bill. This isn't in the description from the representative, but basically the bill would be implicated if it involved a firearm, large capacity magazine. If you cross state lines, if you stay inside the state, if you use any electronic communication means. So it the government is saying we get jurisdiction over you a million different ways from sundown, and they criminalize it. Sounds like a whole heck of a lot of things that legal now.
Yeah. But don't worry, it applies to all groups equally.
Yeah, that's a really funny thing. So in the kind of release saying, "Hey, we got this important piece of legislation we're putting forward," the representative says, "Yeah, this legislation applies regardless of the ideology of the private paramilitary group or the targets of their unlawful activity." Cue Ron Burgundy.
I don't believe you.
I don't believe it.
No, we all know who this is targeted against. And this is,
MAGA is pretty much anybody they deem as being part of MAGA.
anytime someone puts forward a bill of this nature that seems like it doesn't do much and has a very lofty goal, there is some shenanigans going on behind the scenes.
And it is a fairly short bill, and it's straight to the point, so you know that it's not. Because none of their bills are short and straight to the point. So you know that this one is not for you. It is against you and me and all of us.
Red flag laws, perfect example, because they are almost always presented as we got to stop people from hurting themselves. Who doesn't want that, right? Who doesn't want to stop people from hurting themselves?
Yep.
However, you look at it and you're like, well, this actually seems like it really seriously curtails our right. It violates due process. It does all sorts of really horrible things that are contrary to the Constitution. Same goes here. Who doesn't want to prevent terrorist groups from operating in the United States? It sounds like a lofty goal, right?
Yeah, like it.
Not what this does. Not what this is going to do.
This is a short and easy to read bill. Imagine people still won't read this bill. They will see a headline be like, Republicans are trying to prevent anti-terrorism. And then the Democrats who watch that will take it to heart.
Not what it's intended to do.
No, and
Unfortunately.
yeah, and I think does this bill have a snowball's chance in hell of passing? I would say no.
No, probably not.
But why it's important that we talk about this stuff, I mean, you got to take your temperature on your government every now and then, and the temperature is rising. And so this is unfortunate. It's something that you need to be aware of. I don't necessarily think
they've got a fever of 105, and it's been climbing since 2020. I think that the United States government got COVID. They've got long COVID, and it's making them crazy.
think there's any action that needs to be taken right now other than,
There's an election coming up.
yeah, besides,
Talk to your friends because people who watch this channel vote.
yes, that's right. So that's,
Talk to the people in your life who don't vote.
yeah, that's where we need to kind of focus our efforts. But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider
Yeah, this is an election year. Shit's about to hit the fan. I think that if we don't do something in the next couple months, that whoever becomes president, it doesn't matter. We're going to have actual combat in the streets and in the fields. Probably not in the streets as much. It'll probably lead its way out of the cities and be an actual civil war with battles in fields with military vehicles and like makeshift military vehicles and weapons. People are going to be rolling out the bowling ball slingshots, and they're going to be mounting guns on their Toyota trucks